I'm making a series of videos about being homeless in Boise, Idaho, Martin versus Boise, and police harassment, of course, and some other issues in Boise, Idaho related to being homeless, living in a minivan after being run out of housing. Actually, I could talk about the one time, but there's actually been two times, and people aren't going to like me for it. Post right here angered me for several reasons. Okay. Um, they are utterly clueless here in Boise about the homeless community. They only care about how the city looks, and I'm doing air quotes, that it seems to be the most livable city, that everything looks like it's all goodness and light, even as people are driving on streets where every street they turn down there's construction, and and it's the most frustrating city in the country to drive in. That's supposed to be make it more livable, I guess. I guess that's their definition of more livable. And the Housing First facility that he's discussing here, um, it though they're putting facilities like that in all over the country because they were told that they're going to save money because they can put the people that cause problems and cost the city a lot of money in those facilities, embed them with social workers, and control that population. That's why they were interested in building those. And in most cities it's 40 to 60 units. They build those and then usually not much else happens. And then, of course, this is a red state, so we've got housing for veterans, and they've been pushing housing for veterans. They've been putting veterans in housing ahead of everybody else for a very long time here. And there are a lot of people that do donate to the emergency shelters, but they don't know what really goes on in those shelters now, do they? And what really got on my nerves, that Boise is approaching the issue of homelessness with thoughtful compassion. I guess thoughtful compassion, what he means by thoughtful compassion is that the homeless are going to be compartmentalized. The homeless are going to be slandered. The homeless are going to be harassed by the police. The homeless are going to be given citations for sleeping outside, even if there aren't any beds in the shelter. The homeless are going to be incarcerated for sleeping outside. The homeless are going to be made uncomfortable and miserable if they're in the park by the park staff harassing them with equipment or turning sprinklers on them. Is that what you mean by that? Um, the homeless activist is going to have the Boise Police Department refuse to allow them to file police reports, not return the person's phone calls, not allow that person to talk to the chief of police about issues, and the police in the city have even run cars at me. A lot of people have run cars at me, and I have people trying to cause car accidents all the time. I've had the police stalk me. Um, One cop was stalking me, and when he drove off, I followed him and stalked him back. People were laughing their asses off when they saw that. I've had the police slander me. I've had the police department transfer my calls to an inappropriate person at the police department. I've filed complaints about police harassment and had the person, when I went to make a public records request, tell me that there was no um, file for the number that I had been given by the people that were supposed to be processing that complaint, who never processed it, and had to hurriedly throw together a short letter, which it basically exonerated the cop, and then they claimed he wasn't in Idaho anymore. So something's not right with the story. But yeah, that really got on my nerves, that thoughtful compassion. Also, thoughtful compassion means forcing people to live in a shelter in unhealthy conditions, and I'm going to be getting into that further. But there's reasons why people don't want to be in shelters. Then he makes the claim that the camping ordinance is hardly ever used. Yeah, that's what happens. You get a lawsuit. 6 people file a lawsuit against you because you hardly used the ticketing of people for sleeping outside. That doesn't make any sense. And we hardly ever use it. Then why would there have been enough evidence for them to win first the lawsuit and second an appeal at the Ninth Circuit? Doesn't make any sense. A lot of the stuff they say here in Boise doesn't make any sense. So then they talk about how the encampment is going to become a huge public health and safety issue for those living in them as well as for the general public. They don't give a shit about the people living in the camps. They only care about the people in the community that are complaining about it or that it makes the city look bad and not like the most livable city in the country. So then he goes on to the whole point, I guess, was to promote what this woman was saying. And there was one part of what she had to say, well, more than one part, but she claims that, she ran on several issues, one of them being homelessness, mental health, and addiction, another. And there's somewhere down here, let's see. Oh, here we go. And so when they closed down this camp that was in an alleyway, it's just an alleyway. They call it Cooper Court. It's an alley that runs around the Interfaith Sanctuary, which is a homeless shelter. And then they said that there was a group of chronically homeless individuals. It's like they're trying to make being homeless for a long time because of economic conditions and lack of housing and the fact that your income is too low to pay the current rent because of predatory landlords and a city that doesn't regulate them so that they can't raise the rents super high, and also in a city where the pay is really low for those that are working poor. um, it's like they're trying to make it into some kind of a mental health issue that you're chronically homeless because there's no way you can get a home financially. So she says there was a core group of chronically homeless individuals who truly did not want to go into the shelter system. Surprise! Who would be surprised by people not wanting to go into the shelter system? However, we also found that as the encampment grew, it attracted a larger group of younger, more criminal, more drug-involved people to the scene. Well, yes, those people were there. Those people were already a part of the community. That's why they were there. There is a drug ring in Boise, Idaho, and I have more to say about that as well. So then she says, indeed, that second group preyed upon the first. That just enraged me because what they did is they took those people that were preying, the sociopaths that were preying upon those other people in the camp. They cared so much about that. No, they didn't give a shit about it. That's just an excuse that they use, one of many excuses to break up the camp. And now they're in the shelter preying upon the people in the shelter. And no, the staff did not do anything about it. No, the staff did not supervise anything. You would not believe the truth about what really goes on, okay? And so I'm always a main target of sociopaths, narcissistic types, pathologies that have narcissism as a component. come after people with my personality type, and I'm a retired nurse, and we often have problems with narcissists coming after us. I have something that most of the other people that they come after don't do. I like to mess with them. And the reason that I do that is because if I say things to them to trigger them, other people can see what they are. It exposes them as what they are. That helps protect other people. That helps expose the person who's in a job of power over other people to get them out of that job. And I take a lot of abuse for that, and I am harmed a lot because of that. But maybe I'm wrong, but I think it helps a lot of other people when I do that. And so that really torqued me. I spent an unbelievable amount of time being abused in that shelter by some very dangerous people. And a lot of those dangerous people are what I call the interfaith sanctuaries propaganda spokesmodels. And there's going to be more on that.